loud. Hello? Is it on? No, it's not. Where is it?
Hello?
It's not on.
Hello? Excellencies? Hello, Your Excellencies, good morning. Can you please settle down as we await the arrival of heads of state? Hello? It's very soft.
Eh? Yeah, something.
Yeah. Well, welcome back. As you can see, the official opening of the SADC heads of state is about to start. You can see a lot of ministers there on your screen just meeting and greeting as they wait for their leaders to arrive. It is the second last day before the summit, of course, wraps up. So today is the most important day of the summit here. We're waiting for the presidents of the 15 countries around SADC who are part of the 37th summit of the SADC region. And of course, we will be expecting introductory remarks by SADC Executive Secretary, and that is His Excellency Dr. Sir Gomena Lawrence Tex. And thereafter, we will also get remarks from, of course, the outgoing chair nation, and that is Swaziland's His Excellency King Mswati III, who will also address the meeting. And thereafter, we will have welcoming remarks from President Jacob Zuma, as he is now the chair of SADC, who of course will officially open the meeting here, as the various heads of states from the region, ministers, other dignitaries are meeting. And we continue to, of course, cover the summit here. And right now, I can see I am joined by one of the ministers who are part of the summit here, South Africa's very own Minister Rob Davis, who is now joining me here, and we'll perhaps talk and the issue of industrialization that is also top of the agenda here at the summit. Minister, thank you so much for your time. Sure. Let's go right into the heart of the matter. Top of the agenda, of course, is ways or rather measures that you are looking at as a body in the region to improve not just the South African economy, but to make sure that there is a strong integrated SADC economy, isn't it?
Yes, indeed, and I think the approach to regional integration that we are working along is a very important one as well. It's what we call development integration. And there are three pillars of that. The one is the trade integration, which was the one that proceeded fastest. We have in place a SADC trade protocol, which is a free trade area agreement among most of the members. There's 2 members that are not part of it. Then we have an infrastructure program because I think we realize that the issues of promoting a higher level of intra-regional trade are not just to do with tariffs, they're also to do with infrastructure deficiencies. And then the last one is that we are all integrated into the world economy as producers and exporters of primary commodities of one sort or another, and that to promote more intra-regional trade we need to have more tradable products, and that means diversification, industrialization, and moving up the value chain. So this is all part of the overall strategy, and the industrial pillar has been receiving a lot of attention recently, and that's one of the highlights of the decisions that will be taken here in the summit as well.
All right, just to keep you waiting there a little bit, Minister, we just saw, of course, the outgoing chair of SADC, alongside the new chair of SADC coming in for the meeting, and that is, of course, King Mswati, alongside South Africa's President Jacob Zuma, coming in to the meeting. As we know that President Jacob Zuma will be opening the summit heads of state meeting that is about to start. So let's just toss a last question to the minister before we let him go to join his counterparts for that meeting that's about to start. Minister, lastly, on the issue of corruption that we tend to hear so much about, that a lot of people have expressed concern about. Today we have a group that is going to protest outside, where they also highlighting their concerns on that, saying that the issue of corruption that tend to maybe compromise leaders in the SADC region is exactly that compromises your plan to reach your objectives to better the lives of people in the region. How are you going around that? What must happen to conquer corruption?
Well, I think that there's not necessarily a specific program in SADC to deal with that. But I think I can say that from where I sit, that the more there is corruption, the more you have less resources available to achieve the objectives that we need to achieve. The more also you find that policy instruments like tools like localization and things like that, which are quite critical to support industrialization, become compromised and they become disabled. So I think that it's a very critical question. We've got to get on top of it, and all of us in our different countries in the first instance have actually got to make sure that we act together more effectively to fight the scourge of corruption. It is something that we do need to deal with.
All right, thank you so much, Minister. I think let's give you time to go and join the other leaders for that meeting that's about to start. Let's allow you to leave the set as we continue here. Alicia, I think for now, let's go back inside and see what's happening there. There you can see, of course, the President of Zimbabwe, President Robert Mugabe, among other leaders who are, of course, gearing up for the heads of state summit, or rather meeting that's about to start. But he is standing alone. We have not seen the First Lady of Zimbabwe, Grace Mugabe, who has since been plagued by controversy throughout this week. We have not actually spotted her here at the summit. But let's go back inside. That meeting is about to start.
Yeah.
be seated. Once more, thank you very much, Ratsepo School Choir. They were singing the national anthem for the Republic of South Africa and the anthem for the Southern African Development Community in the 3 SADC official languages, English, French, and Portuguese. Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, members of the Diplomatic Corps, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, bonjour, bon dia, salibonan. A warm welcome to you all to the official opening ceremony of the 37th SADC Ordinary Summit of Heads of State and Governments, which is happening right here in the OR Tambo building in the conference within the Department of International Relations and Cooperation in Pretoria, South Africa. The 37th SADC Summit of Heads of State is happening under the theme Partnering with the Private Sector in Developing Industry and Value Chains. My name is Barbara Lopi from the SADC Public Relations Unit, and I have been mandated to direct this ceremony, so I will be taking you through the program of the day. Allow me to just say a few words on what the SADC Summit is. This is the highest policy-making body of the Southern African Development Community, SADC. It is made up of all SADC heads of state and government, and it is managed through a troika system that comprises the current chairperson of SADC, the incoming chairperson, and the immediate previous chairperson. And the chair rotates on an annual basis. This summit is responsible for the overall policy direction and control of functions of the community. And the SADC Summit meets every year around this time. Once more, welcome to the 37th SADC Ordinary Summit of Heads of State and Government. Let me now introduce the heads of state and government and representatives that are here. Up front here, allow me to introduce His Majesty King Mswati III of the Kingdom of Swaziland, who is also the current chairperson of SADC. A big hand to His Majesty. Thank you, Your Majesty. Allow me also to take the liberty to introduce His Excellency President Jacob Zuma of South Africa, who is also our host in this event, and also the incoming chairperson. Next, allow me to recognize and introduce our heads of states and government, or representatives, that are here in no particular order. Let me start with, from the Republic of Botswana, we have His Excellency President Lieutenant General Dr. Seretse Khama Ian Khama. Republic of Mozambique, we have His Excellency President Felipe Jacinto Nyusi. Oh, apologies, it's the minister. Sorry, we didn't correct. Minister Baloyi, thank you very much. From the Republic of Namibia, we have His Excellency President Dr. Hage Geingob. From the Republic of Seychelles, we have His Excellency President Dani Faure. From the Republic of Zambia, we have His Excellency President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. From Zimbabwe, we have His Excellency President Robert Gabriel Mugabe. From the United Republic of Tanzania, we have Her Excellency the Vice President Samia Suluhu Hassan. From the Democratic Republic of Congo, we have His Excellency Prime Minister Bruno Tshibala. From Madagascar, we have His Excellency Prime Minister Olivia Mahafai Solonandrasan. From the Kingdom of Lesotho, we have the Right Honorable Prime Minister Dr. Moshe Thomas Tabane. From Malawi, we have Honorable Dr. Emmanuel Fabiano, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. From Angola, we have His Excellency Honorable Georges Chikoti, Minister of External Relations. From Mauritius, we have Her Excellency Mrs. Dwaka Kanabradi, Secretary in Foreign Affairs. In our midst, we also have many guests, but allow me to introduce the special invited guest who will also be making remarks. And from the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, we have the Executive Secretary, Her Excellency Dr. Vera Songwe. From the African Development Bank, we have His Excellency Dr. Akinuwumi Adesina, the President of the bank. Up front here, to my immediate left, we have Her Excellency Dr. Stegomena Lawrence Tax, the Executive Secretary of SADC. And seated next to President Zuma on the left-hand side, we have the Honorable Minister Maite Nkwana Mashabane, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation from the Republic of South Africa, and also Chairperson of Council. Thank you. Allow me now, at this point, to invite the Executive Secretary of SADC, Her Excellency Dr. Stegomena Tax, to give introductory remarks. Thank you.
Your Majesty, King Mswati III of the Kingdom of Swaziland and the Chairperson of SADC, Your Excellency Jacob Zuma, President of the Republic of South Africa, incoming Chairperson of SADC and the host of the 37th Ordinary Summit of SADC, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government and representatives, Your Excellencies, First Spouses, Honorable Maite Mashabane, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of the Republic of South Africa and Chairperson of Council of Ministers, Honorable Ministers, Your Excellency, the President of the African Development Bank, Your Excellency, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Your Excellencies, Head of Regional and International Organizations, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, and the members of the Diplomatic Corps, representatives of international cooperating partners, officials from SADC member states and the SADC Secretariat, representatives of the media, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. It is with deep sense of honor and gratitude to be accorded the opportunity to welcome you to the official opening of the 2017 SADC Summit in this magnificent city of Pretoria. I thank you most sincerely for honoring our invitations and attending this occasion. Allow me to pay tribute to His Excellency Jacob Zuma, the President of the Republic of South Africa, his government, and the people of the Republic of South Africa for the warm hospitality, excellent preparations, and the facilities put at our disposal. We are gathered yet once again to deliberate on our common development and regional integration agenda for the betterment of the lives of the peoples of our region. Your Majesty, Excellencies, the macroeconomic position of our region remains critical for the realization of the goals we set for the region. Overall, the macroeconomic situation and the economic performance in the SADC region has remained positive, registering an upward trend in economic performance, albeit at a decreasing rate. The rate of growth of the regional gross product GDP stood at an average of 2.4% in 2016 in real terms compared to 3.3% recorded in 2015. The slowdown is attributed to regional shocks emanating from negative weather patterns, weak commodity prices, and a continued sluggish performance of the global economy since 2009 global economic crisis. Prospects for 2017 show a slight improvement as economic growth is expected to increase to an average of 3.6%. Inflationary pressures continue to mount, with some member states registering double-digit inflation rates. The regional average inflation rate stood at 10.2% in 2016 compared to an average of 5.8% in 2015. The regional inflation is projected to slow down to about 8.7% in 2017. Due to the challenges in economic performance and the resultant low government revenue, most member states' fiscal balance position have been affected in the midst of an increased government revenues. As a result, the region recorded an average fiscal deficit of 3.1% of GDP in 2016 compared to a deficit of 3.7% in 2015. Public debt across member states has also risen due to deficit financing. To this end, the region recorded an average regional public debt of 48.8% of GDP in 2016 compared to 45.1% in 2015. It is, however, encouraging that all member states expect met the regional target of public debt of 60% of GDP or less. Intra-SADC export increased to $35.8 billion in 2016, representing 23% of total exports of the region compared to 22.8% in 2015. To continue on a sustainable growth path, member states are encouraged to implement policies that could buffer against shocks that undermine economic growth, while vigorously pursuing economic diversification and identification of new sources of growth, including a robust industrialization orientation. Your Excellencies, despite the macroeconomic challenges that have been tremendous, there have been tremendous efforts in consolidating a resilient growth path through our industrialization agenda. Since August 2014, when a decision was taken in Victoria Falls to front-road industrialization under the theme SADC Strategy for Economic Transformation, leveraging the region's diverse resources for sustainable economic and social development through beneficiation and value addition, industrialization has remained the region's major transformation trajectory. The theme anchored on the urgent need for the region to leverage its abundant and diverse resources, especially in agriculture and mining, to accelerate industrialization through beneficiation and value chain. To operationalize this theme, the SADC Industrialization Strategy and Roadmap was approved in April 2015. The agenda was carried forward by the August 2015 theme, namely accelerating industrialization for SADC economies through transformation of natural endowment and improved human capital, and the August 2016 theme, namely resource mobilization for investment in sustainable energy infrastructure for an inclusive SADC industrialization and for the prosperity of the region, which focus on energy as a catalyst to industrialization. Complementary to 2015 and 2016 theme, the Chairperson of SADC, His Majesty King Mswati III, also initiated the establishment of the SADC University for Transformation. Work has progressed with a regional skills assessment and developing a roadmap to operationalize the SADC University of Transformation. Once operational, the university will contribute towards the production of industry-led experts with the skills and technical capacity to support the industrialization of the region and nurture the SADC technological and socio-economic transformation agenda. This is a noble but indeed a big undertaking requiring appropriate infrastructure, both soft and hard, and sustainable financing. The region is committed to deliver on this noble initiative. Your Excellencies, to realize the socio-economic transformation through our industrialization trajectory, an action plan detailing key activities and intervention was approved in March 2017. An action plan is being rolled out in our member states. Together with this, value chains in key priority sectors, namely mineral beneficiation, pharmaceutical, and agro-processing, were profiled and are ready for investments. While our industrialization strategy has been set, implementation and financing of industrialization remain critical. And we encourage the private sector to partner with the region by investing in these high impact and profitable value chains. We also encourage international cooperating partners and other organizations to align their support at national level with regional value chains and the industrialization as a whole. Industrialization remains our sure path for prosperity of the region. The August 2017, which is today's summit theme, partnering with private sector in developing industry and regional value chains, emphasizes the importance of value chains and the role of the private sector as critical drivers for industrializations. Private sector is therefore invited to invest in the identified value chains and the other value chains. In explaining the 2017 summit theme, Honorable Magwanishe, Deputy Minister of South Africa, said, and I quote, "South Africa's theme has been selected to ensure continuity in our collective aspiration towards regional industrialization in SADC, with the urgent need to modernize and diversify our economies. Industrialization is complex and rests on the interdependence of many factors that impact on firms and the value chains in the region. Our absolute necessity is the need for the member state to create an attractive investment climate, utilize public policy tools to leverage resource endowment and the opportunities to promote job creation in the region. Any industrialization will require investment by private sector players working closely with the government." End of quote. Your Excellencies, in operationalizing the theme of last year, 2016 summit theme, resource mobilization, the regional, under His Majesty, under the leadership of the Chairperson of SADC, His Majesty King Mswati III, and his government successfully held an investment forum in July 2017, paving the way for investment in energy and water sectors. Member states are encouraged to address the binding constraints as were identified to speed up implementation of the projects and to continue building business cases to ensure that the projects are attractive to both local and foreign investors by putting in place policies and conditions that are conducive for investment. According to 2016 report of the status of integration in Africa, SADC is among the advanced regional communities. As we strive for higher ground, introspection remains necessary if we are to give a new impetus to SADC development in the integration agenda, and to ensure that the dreams and aspirations of our founding fathers continue to live. It is for this reason that we successfully convened a SADC strategic ministerial retreat on SADC We Want, with the objective to take stock on what SADC has achieved since its establishment in 1980, the challenges it is facing, and what needs to be done to accelerate the pace and level of SADC integration agenda. Following the adoption of the conclusion of SADC strategic ministerial retreat by the Extraordinary Summit held in March 2017, a plan with concrete steps to implement the conclusion is being developed and to be submitted for consideration in March 2018. Your Secretariat is committed to deliver on this historical undertaking. Operationalization of the conclusion of the strategic ministerial retreat is expected to be the nugget of hope for this defining moment of the SADC, of the future of SADC, and it will go a long way in assisting the region as we embark on the development of a successor plan for the revised regional indicative strategic plan and the strategic plan for the organ, both of which expire in 2020. SADC will use this opportunity to undertake extensive consultation with member states, including the private sector, non-state actors, and the general populace. The region has continued to enjoy peace and stability and to consolidate democratic values and practice through the holding of democratic elections and upholding the rules of law, which the law has attested by the elections that were held between August 2016 and July 2017 in the republics of Zambia, Seychelles, and the Kingdom of Lesotho. I therefore applaud member states for continuing to uphold democratic practices, principles of electoral integrity, and for the continued effort in strengthening their democratic institutions. Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, the high-level mandate which you have rested on our shoulders, on the shoulders of the Secretariats to deliver on regional integration and development agenda is unequivocal, and it requires purposeful leadership. Allow me, therefore, on my own behalf, and indeed on behalf of my Deputy Secretary, Regional Integration, Dr. Tebisa Kumshongo, to extend our utmost and sincere appreciation for the trust bestowed on us and for giving us an opportunity to serve you at the Secretariat since September 2013, and for extending our tenure for a second term. As we aspire to achieve higher grounds through you, we pledge continued dedication and professionalism to the community for which we serve, and all our duties contributes to the prosperity of our regional improvement of our region, improvement of the living standard of our people, and increased socio-economic growth and development through a robust and a meaningful regional integration and development community. I thank the Almighty God for giving me the privilege and strength to serve as the Executive Secretary of SADC for the past 4 years. Considering where we have come, the task has been noble but heavy and a challenging opportunity. As the first Executive Secretary, as the first female Executive Secretary, I applaud all women, and I sincerely thank all women who continue to support me throughout the year. Allow me to mention a few, Your Excellencies. I am highly indebted to the Vice President of the Republic of Tanzania, Madam Samia. She has been there for me before I joined and after joining. I also recognize Madam Daitwa for her support. When I joined, she was the first chairperson of the Ministerial Committee, and we were faced with a lot of challenges. She never gave up on me. Instead, she helped me. To address the challenges. I also recognize Madam Mashabane, my second chair of the MCO, who took over from Madam Daitwa. I also recognize Madam Dlamini Zuma, who has been there as my sister, always reminding me the don'ts and do's. I finally thank all female ministers in the Kingdom of Swaziland who has been there for me and enabled me to deliver during the year we are ending. As we transit, let me end by saying that let us continue supporting each other. We need each other as female leaders. As we transit, and I conclude my statement, let me express my profound appreciation to His Majesty King Mswati III, the outgoing chairperson of SADC, and the entire team, led by His Royal Highness Prince Rangsebi, Minister of Economic Planning and Development of the Kingdom of Swaziland, and the outgoing chairperson of SADC Council of Ministers, for His Majesty's exemplary leadership and the continued guidance and support the Secretariat, which made it possible for us to register the progress recorded during the year. I thank His Majesty for his generosity in terms of time allocated to SADC integration agenda and for the clear and timely guidance as and when was required. On this note, allow me to take this opportunity to thank the staff of the Secretariat for their professionalism, dedication, and hard work. Without their support, it would not have been easy for me to stand before you and present my remarks. As we settle to deal with our next year's business, I remain confident for the commitment by the incoming SADC chairperson, His Excellency Jacob Zuma, the President of the Republic of South Africa, and the SADC member state to accelerate SADC industrialization agenda as a priority for the development and regional integration of SADC. The 37th SADC Summit theme, partnering with private sector in developing industry and the regional value chains, clearly takes forward the industrialization agenda which we have embarked on. I look forward here to another successful. I thank you for your attention. May God bless Africa, SADC, and may God bless SADC. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Dr. Stekomena Lawrence Tax, the Executive Secretary of SADC. Indeed, August is a Women's Month in South Africa. I just want to take this opportunity to also wish all the women in this room a happy Women's Month. Thank you. Your Majesty, Excellencies, distinguished guests, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to invite to the podium His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, the President of the Republic of South Africa, to give us his welcome remarks.
Thank you very much, Director of the program. Your Majesty, King Mswati III, Chairperson of SADC, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, SADC Executive Secretary, Dr. Vera Songwe, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Dr. Akinumi Atisina, President of the African Development Bank, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to welcome you to South Africa on the occasion of the 37th Ordinary SADC Summit of Heads of State and Government. We are more thrilled that we welcome you in a building that is named after one of the icons of our liberation struggle and one of Africa's greatest patriots, Oliver Reginald Tambo, fondly known to many as OR. Moreover, on the 27th October 2017, OR Tambo would have celebrated his 100th birthday. It is in this context that the South African government has declared 2017 the year of OR Tambo. As a leader of our liberation struggle, OR Tambo tirelessly mobilized international solidarity against the unjust apartheid regime, which was also a major force of destabilization in our region. His leadership also led to the creation of a democratic South Africa whose constitution is built on the values OR Tambo championed for the better part of his adult life. It is therefore important that as we observe this year and this incredible figure in our nation's history that we draw inspiration from his exemplary leadership and from the vision that accorded him the accolade of any international statesman and an astute, consummate diplomat. We further wish to acknowledge and pay tribute to our leaders that passed on recently and who fought for our collective freedom and contributed towards our region's liberation. We remember and salute the role of both former President of Botswana, Sir Ketumile Masire, and the Namibian Liberation Struggle stalwart and former Minister Herman Andimba Toivo Yatoivo. We appreciate the achievements of both these giants for their sacrifices and will continue to be inspired by their legacies. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 2017 symbolizes an important year for the Southern African Development Community as it marks the Jubilee celebration of our organization. As such, the time is opportune for all of us as heads of state and government to take stock of the progress as well as opportunities created since SADC's inception. As a region, we have a blueprint, the revised Regional Integration Strategic Development Program 2015-2020 to guide our economic development and integration. Commendable progress in implementation has been made with the development of the Regional Infrastructure Development Master Plan, the industrialization as well as strategy and roadmap. This meeting of heads of state and government is important as it gives us an opportunity to engage on the progress and challenges in terms of implementing our SADC integration agenda during this past year. We should also foster an environment for reflection on the future strategic direction of the region post-2020. We therefore wish to welcome the progress initiated during Swaziland's chairpersonship, which saw SADC embarking upon a project to renew its vision. Specifically, the March 2017 SADC ministerial retreat held under a policy framework, SADC We Want, which has built on our Continental Agenda 2063. Our collective responsibility and work in ensuring that we maintain a peaceful, stable, and secure region is pertinent to attaining our objectives. The critical need for both industrial and infrastructure development in SADC cannot be overstated. The vision of a connected and prosperous African continent in the form of the Continental Free Trade Area finds expression in the work of the COMESA East African Community SADC tripartite free trade area, where negotiations continue to aspire towards enhancing intra-regional trade and market integration. These initiatives are geared towards creating employment, improving manufacturing, enhancing development, and addressing poverty alleviation in the SADC region specifically. As the incoming chair of SADC, South Africa has been working closely with the Kingdom of Swaziland and the SADC Secretariat towards ensuring a smooth transition. I would therefore like to extend my gratitude to all involved in these processes thus far. Finally, I wish to emphasize that South Africa remains committed towards building on our gains made thus far, as well as identifying solutions to challenges that have impeded on our progress. It is important that we remember this point. SADC is our organization, and as much and as such, our plans will only be driven if they are implemented as a national level, at a national level. What is needed now is to enhance our collective responsibility towards the realization of our objectives. I thank you.
Thank you. That was President Jacob Zuma giving us his welcome remarks. We've now been warmly welcomed. At this point, I will invite our next speaker, who is Dr. Vera Songwe, the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, to give her remarks.
Good morning. Your Excellency, Your Majesty, King Mswati III of the Kingdom of Swaziland and Chairperson of SADC, Your Excellency, President Jacob Zuma, President of the South Africa, incoming Chairperson of SADC, and our gracious host, the Minister of Internal Relations for South Africa, the SADC Executive Secretary, Your Excellencies, Heads of States and Representatives, Honorable Ministers, Heads of Institutions, the private sector, civil society, representatives of the diplomatic corps, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to begin by thanking His Excellency President Jacob Zuma and the government and people of South Africa for their warm hospitality and splendid arrangements that they have put at our disposal for the summit. Giyabonga. I am deeply honored as the newly appointed Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa to deliver my first remarks to this August summit of SADC on the very pertinent theme, which is partnering with the private sector in developing industry and value chains. It is indeed the first regional economic community high-level forum I have the pleasure to address since assuming my duties on August 1st, and also because I'm coming from the private sector. So I feel particularly comfortable discussing a topic that I am very well conversed with and of whose importance for the continent I am fully aware. So once again, I really want to thank the Honorable Secretary of SADC as another woman for inviting me to this forum today. Thank you very much. Today, we are in a time, and I think as we have heard both from His Excellency the President and from the Secretary, of great uncertainty in the economic environment. World growth remains modest at 3.5%. Trade and investment opportunities are contracting in the developed world. There are still some glimpses of hope in the developing world, but it only exists for those who have the potential, the capacity, and the environment to take advantage of it. And that is why we are here today, because we believe that the SADC community is going to be the door into the continent and the leader in taking those opportunities forward and bringing them into the continent. Although global growth is projected to rise to 2.9% in 2018, the overall outlook still remains uncertain, and I think increasingly so, even given events in the recent past with instability and terrorism. And at this moment, I would also like to take a moment just to think and remember what is happening to our fellow sisters and brothers in Sierra Leone. And I think that that is one of the points that we must think about on the continent, is how, as a continent, we address issues of climate change. So allow me to express my sympathy to the people of Sierra Leone on behalf of the Economic Commission for Africa as we talk about global uncertainty and issues that beleague us as a continent. In addition to issues that are on our continent as well, we also have the question of Brexit and the question of trade and global issues that we need to, as a continent, find solutions for. The Economic Commission for Africa, of course, is working on some of these issues. In the case of the African continent as a whole, growth has slowed down from 3.2% this year and is expected to rise to 3.8% in 2018. I think when we talk about those numbers and we talk about 3.2 to 3.8, it's very difficult to put them into context. But if we remember that from 2000 to 2010, 2012, we were growing as a continent at 6%, we see that our growth has halved today. With population growth at 2.3 to 3%, a 3.2% growth does not provide the jobs or create increased prosperity for our people, particularly the youth. Hence, we do have a very challenging time ahead of us. In fact, the United Nations, and part of the growth that we had before was coming from foreign direct investment and the private sector. And a lot of times when we talk about foreign direct investment, we talk about investment coming from outside the continent. But we also talk about, we want to talk today, and as Africa, about foreign direct investment, intra-Africa foreign direct investment, which we need to grow and grow faster. Today, those numbers are falling. Once again, the SADC community is one of the regions that has provided growing foreign direct investment for the rest of the continent, and we hope that those numbers will rise because of the leadership of the SADC economic region and how they plan to take the private sector and private sector engagement forward. I think that when we look at the trends of the past, which seem to be challenging, we know that we have been able to do better, as I said, between 2000 and 2010. Sustainably, the continent was able to grow at 6%, and many countries in this room were leading that 6% growth. And we hope that, we know we've done it before, we know we can do it again. So even though we have challenges today, the road ahead of us could be quite clear, and we know some of the paths that we need to take. On the macroeconomic front, in recent years, we have seen a lot of challenges, both in terms of, with the fall in commodity prices, in terms of public debt increases. But we have also been there before, and we have corrected those, so we can do that again. Overall, trade in the SADC region has gone down, inter-regional trade has gone down, but we also know that if we are able to work on the plan for creating regional value chains, we can increase some of the trade, intra-regional trade. The region remains one of the regions that has the highest intra-regional trade that we have seen in the past. As in some parts of Africa, the SADC region has not been spared the low revenues from commodity exports and depreciating currencies that have severely inflated fiscal deficits and public debt. Without exception, the entire region has in recent years suffered budget shortfalls as many countries strive to meet commitments on social and capital spending. This is particularly true for Botswana, Swaziland, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, where we have seen worsening of dwindling budget surpluses as a percentage of GDP, while ratios of government external debt to GDP also climbed. SADC's overall government debt has risen from 42% of GDP in 2014 to 46.8% of GDP in 2015, tightening the ability of the public sector to provide necessary infrastructure, hence requiring more involvement of the private sector. There are strong indications that SADC countries, especially the resource-rich economies, are currently incurring unsustainable levels of debt that could have a negative impact on rolling out of the industrialization programs that have been worked on and which have a very clear path ahead for how we can work on Africa's transformation and Africa's industrialization. In particular, at the current rate of external borrowing, weakening currencies across the region will make it harder to repay foreign currency denominated loans, and hence the new agenda on working to raise domestic resources in order to ensure that we can continue the rates of investment needed to grow the sub-region. Adding on to the challenging economic terrain that the SADC region has been through in extractive sectors, where we have seen huge layoffs of employment and job losses, latest data show that total investment by both public and private sectors has slowed significantly as government resources have shrinked and business confidence is dwindling in some of the SADC member states. To meet the demands of the burgeoning youth labor force, SADC countries must fully exploit the natural growth creators of jobs, such as construction in the housing sector, fueled by urbanization and population growth, infrastructure development, energy, hospitality, pharmaceuticals, agro-processing, and beneficiation in the mineral sectors, as discussed during the summit. The services sector and the blue economy are also emerging as key sectors for anchoring the development of the region. Therefore, in this vein, a full implementation of SADC's infrastructure vision, as captured in the RIDMP, will go a long way to solving some of the infrastructure bottlenecks. I think, as His Excellency President Jacob Zuma mentioned, infrastructure is going to be one of the key themes that the sub-region will have to work with in order to ensure that the development of value chains is actually successful. It is also necessary to have some consistency of service provision across the region, which would encourage skills mobility and business across the region. We have seen the discussion of the mobility of peoples that was done during the summit, and we, as the Economic Commission for Africa, continue to make at your disposal the services of the Commission to work with the Commission to see how we can move forward on the movement of goods and services to the sub-region. It is a sub-region of 600 million if you count the greater sub-region, and as a consequence, a substantially strong economic unit, which we believe can attract a lot of private and foreign direct investment. I want to focus on 3 points as we go forward to see how the union will be built, and I think most of the points have already been touched on by His Excellency. The first one is on the trade, the second one will be on infrastructure, and the third on domestic resource mobilization, all of them linked. I wish to congratulate Your Excellencies for your firm commitment and strides made by the SADC region towards integration. Integration will be the key for the continent and for the sub-region to develop and to meet the aspirations of the youth as they continue to grow. The region is well ahead of the pack on the continent in terms of regional integration. So we must begin, when we talk of regional integration, by congratulating the SADC community for having led the way and for showing some examples about how we can do this. The SADC Free Trade Agreement is fully functional with levels of ambition exceeding that of the CFTA itself. The SADC market boasts a population of about 327 million and a total GDP of about 600 billion in 2016. SADC is also home to some of the most liberal African economies, some of which have already achieved up to 100% of tripartite free trade area negotiations. According to the Regional Integration Index of 2016, SADC and ECOWAS have higher than average Regional Economic Commission scores on regional integration overall. In particular, SADC has higher than average REC scores across the dimensions of regional infrastructure, free movement of people, financial and macroeconomic integration. Therefore, SADC is already perceived as the main player and leader in the CFTA process. It is no secret that COMESA, EAC, SADC, and the TFTA was initiated through the pivotal role of the SADC community together with COMESA and then extended to EAC. The TFTA, which SADC is part of, is home to 600 million people. The fact that the TFTA holds some strong potential to drive the Continental Free Trade Agreement process has also been acknowledged by the African Union Summit of Heads of States. SADC's experience illustrates that many challenges to regional integration can be overcome and that the region is well positioned to take the leadership on the free trade agreement process. As ECA, we look forward to working with you on this signature issue for the continent between now and 2018. But if we are to unleash the full potential of this well-endowed region to emerge as a true power bloc capable of driving Africa's overall integration agenda, there is still much work ahead of us. SADC can do it for everyone else in the region, because you do have in this community a very important and unique advantage right here in this room, and playing kind host to all of us. There is the gigantic elephant, South Africa, whose participation in the G20 is a formidable link between Africa and the development priorities of the global community, and therefore a clear representative of Africa's ambitions in the global community. And we hope to continue to benefit from that link between the continent and the global community to ensure that Africa's priorities and Africa's challenges are put on the global scene. Building on the success of SADC that it has registered on the CFTA, for this to happen, we need strong political buy-in and leadership, which is required to unblock and bottlenecks in negotiations and to drive domestic reforms that will empower the private sector to also buy into and take advantage of these opportunities. Today, we see renegotiations of NAFTA, the North Africa Free Trade Agreement. When NAFTA was began, it began as a $300 million trade bloc to $3 billion, and today at $1.3 trillion trade bloc. That is the power of free trade zones. We believe that even though today NAFTA is being renegotiated, it is being renegotiated because economies have grown. And we believe when NAFTA was being negotiated, there were no discussions about internet technology or services or the kinds of financial services we have today. It is a pleasure to say that we are facing, as a region and as a SADC community, the same kinds of challenges. We have leapfrogged. Today, we are also thinking about how we can make sure that as we do a continental free trade agreement, we can negotiate issues of services, internet facilities, monetary flows. So the kinds of service agreements and renegotiations that are in NAFTA are what we will be looking at under the CFTA as well, and doing it together and at the same time. I think that there is no better example of the fact that Africa has leapfrogged into a century where we can be negotiating and discussing at a continental level issues that are being discussed at broader and international levels like NAFTA. And we believe that we can and are well positioned to meet that challenge and more than meet the expectations that the citizens of the continent and of the sub-region SADC have on us. To be able to get there, we also need to make sure, and this is the second point, that we are able to raise domestic resources, to be able to deliver on the infrastructure that is needed to make the goods travel from one continent and one country to the other. Today, we believe that with domestic resource mobilization, we will be able to support the private sector. We congratulate the SADC community for making the private sector and discussions of the private sector, partnering with the private sector, an integral part of this discussion. For the private sector to come to the table, they need to have access to resources that are cheap and that have the right rate of return. it is also a pride of the SADC region to say that a lot of the work that has been done on the frontiers and the innovative work on innovative financing has happened in this region. South Africa has been the leader on public-private partnerships and has taken forward public-private partnerships in the energy sector, in the water sector, Zambia as well. And so we have, in countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, the private sector is coming in, working singularly with women, creating women banks, empowering more women. I think that we do have in the sub-region a strong example of how the private sector can work and work for the betterment of the people. Again, this SADC community can show the rest of the continent how one leverages the private sector with blended financing. The creation of the SADC Development Fund is a unique example of how we can create a vehicle that will fast-track and accelerate private sector development within the community. I am happy to say that the Economic Commission for Africa has already been supporting many of the SADC member countries to develop this private sector agenda. We have worked on the SADC industrialization strategy and roadmap. We have provided technical support to SADC on the mining program by building mining sector capacity and a security framework for SADC mineral products, the mineral sector skills assessment, and we have done a mineral beneficiation profiling. At the national level, the ECA continues to support SADC countries in different sectors and ways. For example, the government of the Kingdom of Swaziland in developing trade and industrial policy, Malawi and Lesotho in developing policies in the mining sector consistent with the African Union's mining vision and support. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if anything, moving forward, we have a number of priorities that have been identified by the Interministerial Council, which are pharmaceuticals, agro-processing, and minerals beneficiation. To do this, we also need to work on infrastructure, which was the third point. Today, in the sub-region, 190 million people still go without electricity. We do know the importance of energy for the development of the continent and the sub-region. Energy has been and will continue to be the unblocking of development, growth, industrialization for the SADC community and for Africa as a whole. We sit here in our midst with the Democratic Republic of Congo and the INGA project, which we know could provide electricity, and I must respectfully defer to the African Development Bank that has the financing to say that collectively, if we are to leverage the private sector and build regional value chains, together we are willing to work with the Democratic Republic of Congo to see how we can work on clean technology, clean energy, which is hydro. We must also commend South Africa for moving forward on its plan for clean coal and also solar energy policies, which have been done with public-private sector initiatives that have been put in place that the whole sub-region can learn from. So we believe, again, that there is room and there is space to build this infrastructure that will be needed to move goods. Today, when we talk about Alibaba, which is the biggest business man in the world, what Alibaba does is basically move goods from one country to the other and ensure that there is that transportation facility and energy facilities that will make it work. The African Development Bank is the leader on the continent in infrastructure and road networks, and we believe that working together as the Economic Commission for Africa and the SADC community, we can actually deliver on the goals of this community. Building a strong industrial base is also essential and includes the skills mismatch and skills gap that the region will have to fulfill. So therefore, creating this university that will be able to drive and produce skills that the youth will need for the future is a critical and important area that the SADC has taken up on, and we congratulate the member states for putting the youth and putting the skills development of the youth at the forefront of this development. On the gender front, and I cannot conclude without talking about the gender front, I must commend the SADC Ministerial Council for its close monitoring of the gender agenda. Progress has been made in women's representation in parliament, cabinet, and ambassadors, and the judiciary. On the point of the judiciary in particular, it is key for private sector growth and for economic empowerment of women, especially in the sectors of agro-processing and pharmaceuticals, which we have picked as key points for development in the SADC region. I hope that the ECA and SADC can work more together to see how we push forward economic empowerment of women in the sub-region to ensure that they actually can contribute to this private sector development and creation of value chains to which they will be an essential part for growth in the sub-region. Overcoming the remaining bottlenecks, some of which I have already attempted to identify, will go a long way in consolidating the gains already achieved and to unleash the full potential of the SADC region as a firm economic cooperation platform more than capable of making its contribution in driving Africa's overall integration and economic agenda. In closing, the ECA offers its deep collaboration to SADC and stands ready to provide technical and advisory support to help the region tackle the challenges faced by the region. We are more than ready to provide needed support for macroeconomic and industrialization policy development, strengthening of data collection, promoting agribusiness development, pharmaceuticals, mineral beneficiation, and most importantly, ensuring that the policies and ideas that are uniquely African are put forward so that the continent can move forward in one as a collective. Clearly, our ability to push forward the noble objectives of promoting industrialization and development of regional value chains for economic transition in the SADC region and Africa as a whole is not an insurmountable task. Since I stand in South Africa, permit me and allow me to draw from one of the quotes of our leaders. Madiba used to say, no single person can liberate a country. You can only liberate the country if you act as a collective. In the same way, no single country can liberate the continent. We can only liberate and provide prosperity for the continent if we act as a collective union. And together, we pledge to follow the example that has been put forward by the SADC community to ensure that we can continue to grow as a continent. Your Excellencies, I look forward to working with you under the leadership of President Zuma as the incoming chairperson in his role as the SADC region to implement this ambitious and important agenda for the region and Africa as a whole. Nyabongo Kwabkona. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Dr. Vera Songwe from the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. She highlighted some insightful thoughts on how to enhance partnering with the private sector in delivering value chains. At this point, I will now call upon the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akiniwumi Adesina, to come and give his remarks.
Thank you very much. Your Majesty, King Mswati III of the Kingdom of Swaziland and the Chairperson of SADC, Your Excellency, President Jacob Zuma, the President of the Republic of South Africa, and the incoming Chairperson of SADC and the host of the 37th Ordinary SADC Summit, Your Excellencies, the Presidents and Heads of Governments of SADC member states, Your Excellencies, the First Ladies, Your Excellency, Dr. Lawrence Tax, the Executive Secretary of SADC, my dear sister, Honorable Minister of South Africa, Foreign Affairs, Maite Nkwana Mashabane, Chair of the Ministerial Council, Honorable Ministers, Heads of Diplomatic Missions, distinguished delegates, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to thank you, President Zuma, and also King Mswati, for inviting me to this 37th Summit of the Southern Africa Development Community. The African Development Bank, your bank, strongly supports your aspirations for the Southern Africa Development Community, and indeed the aspirations for an accelerated development of Africa. The investment of the African Development Bank in the Southern Africa region totaled $10 billion by the end of 2016, and accounted for 22% of all investments by the bank in Africa. So you can understand why I'm excited to be here. I would also like to take this time to thank President Zuma and also the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs of South Africa and the Honorable Minister of Finance of South Africa for your generosity in helping us to sign the host country agreement for the establishment of the African Development Bank's Office for the Southern Africa Development and Business Delivery for this region. Thank you very much for all your help. You can clap louder for them. I think they deserve that. So we can leave some of the money here, I think. 2 years ago, Your Excellencies, I was elected president of the African Development Bank with your strong support. For this, I'm immensely grateful to all SADC countries. We immediately went to work to develop our plan to help to accelerate the development of Africa. We developed the high fives as the bank's strategy to achieve this, which are to light up and power Africa, to feed Africa, to industrialize Africa, integrate Africa, and improve the quality of life of the people of Africa. And according to the United Nations Development Program, these high fives will allow Africa to achieve 90% of the Agenda 2063 and 90% of the Sustainable Development Goals. So in essence, these high fives are in fact the accelerators of Africa's development. It is time to fast-track Africa. Despite global commodity price shocks, African economies are showing resilience. The real GDP growth rates projected to recover to 3.4% this year from 2.2% last year. The SADC region faces significant challenges as real GDP growth has declined from 4.3% in 2010 to 1.8% in 2016 and only expected to recover to 2.6% this year. The terms of trade of SADC has also declined. Total external debt to GDP has increased, and debt service ratio as a share of GDP has increased from 18.7% in 2012 to 34.7% in 2016. There is no doubt that these are tough times for the SADC region, with commodity price declines and other external shocks slowing growth down. The bank strongly supports the structural reforms to spur greater growth for South Africa, in particular because in the growth of South Africa lies the accelerated economic recovery of the entire SADC region. What we must do is to turn these trends around. While recovery of commodity prices has helped and stronger macroeconomic reforms are needed, we must address fundamental structural challenges that have continued to dampen growth in SADC and Africa as a whole. At the top of the list, as my dear sister Vera just said, is electricity. That's why the African Development Bank is investing heavily in the power sector. Through our new deal on energy for Africa, the bank is investing $12 billion over the next 5 years in the energy sector to leverage between $45 to $50 billion in financing from the private sector and other sources. Africa simply cannot develop in the dark. Investment in the power sector accounts for 35% of all the bank's financing in the Southern Africa region, with investments in major projects such as the Medupi Power Project in South Africa, the Kariba Dam Rehabilitation Project, and the hydroelectric scheme on the Zambezi, which supplies 34% and 37% of the power for Zimbabwe and Zambia, respectively. This region also inspires the bank to think big. Last year, the bank led a loan syndication of $965 million for South Africa's ESCOM, the highest in Africa's history, to support it to develop 13,000 megawatts of power generation capacity. The bank is strongly supporting the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo towards the development of the Great Inga Dam, which, quite honestly, if we get it right, we will light up and power all of Africa from there. And just a few weeks ago, I signed a new $6 billion new energy financing facility to be provided by Japan, by Prime Minister Abe, under the Japan-Africa Energy Facility to support power systems, transmission, and distribution projects, including clean coal technologies. And let me at this point in particular thank you, Excellency President Zuma, for your leadership on this issue, because I did discuss it with you during the TICAD session, and I asked for your support on that, and that we can get $6 billion from Prime Minister Abe for that. That means we can do a lot in terms of baseload power for Africa, which we need for the industrialization strategy that we are talking about. I want to thank you very much, Mr. President. bank is investing in promoting economic corridors that will enhance regional trade and competitiveness. The bank's transport commitments in Southern Africa will focus on priority corridors such as the North-South Corridor, the Nacala, Walvis Bay, Mutara, and among many others. Our funding for these corridors has exceeded $1.2 billion US. The development of the SADC region will be much faster with greater investment in the agriculture sector. We therefore strongly support the SADC agricultural policy and investment plan to transform agriculture. Agriculture is Africa's biggest asset, and yet it remains largely untapped. The size of the food and agriculture market on the continent will rise from the current $300 billion to $1 trillion by 2030. So, we must change the lenses with which we look at agriculture. Agriculture is not a way of life. It is not a development activity. Agriculture must be treated as a business for world creation. Africa must feed itself instead of spending $35 billion a year importing food. That is why, at the African Development Bank, we are providing $24 billion to support agriculture over the next 10 years. But even as we do so, we must address the issue of climate change, which is devastating several economies in the Southern Africa region, as well as in the entire SADC region. High food prices have affected many countries, especially Malawi, Mozambique, Madagascar, Swaziland, and Lesotho. South Africa was not spared, leading to a decline in maize exports. Decline in global commodity prices and attendant depreciation of currencies have led to increased cost of food imports and inflation, hurting both rural and urban poor. The invasion of armyworms has worsened food insecurity in Malawi, South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. The African Development Bank provided $549 million last year to support countries in East and Southern Africa affected by droughts, and will invest $1.1 billion this year for what we call the Say No to Famine initiative to tackle drought affecting several African countries. Your Excellencies, Africa can no longer suffer in silence as far as climate change is concerned. I therefore would like to request that the heads of state and government of the SADC region support my call for the Green Climate Fund and the Global Environment Facility to co-pay for the disaster risk insurance premium for all African countries to the Africa Risk Capacity Facility. The African Development Bank is ready to co-pay for insurance premiums for African countries. So let's start with the SADC region. This, Your Excellencies, will require you to make this as part of your speeches at the upcoming United Nations General Assembly. Africa cannot continue to pay premiums for climate change with millions of lost lives. A challenge facing the SADC region is its reliance on minerals and commodities, which its exports with little or no value addition. Yet, the secret of the wealth of nations is clear. Developed nations add value to everything that they produce, while poor nations export raw materials. Africa must quit being at the bottom of the global value chains and move to rapidly industrialize with value addition to everything that it produces. Africa must work for itself, its people, not exporting wealth to others. That is why the African Development Bank strongly applauds and supports the agenda of industrialization of the SADC region. The bank will provide support for the development of special economic zones and industrial parks, as well as equity financing where appropriate for major industries. The resources to fast-track Africa's development are immense, but I firmly believe that Africa will develop faster and with pride if it mobilizes domestic resources. Africa today has over $334 billion in pension funds, $164 billion in sovereign wealth funds. The size of Africa's pension funds is estimated to rise to $1 trillion by 2030. What's needed, therefore, is for Africa to mobilize these institutional investments into much-needed infrastructure. That is why the African Development Bank is helping to integrate the stock exchanges in Africa to help to mobilize savings pools and deepen the capital market. The bank also strongly supports the SADC Regional Development Fund, for which we've been asked to play a role, and I look forward to that. In fact, I just invited Dr. Tax to also pay me a visit at the bank where we can help to move forward the decision of the Ministerial Council on that. The bank has also helped to establish Africa 50, which has so far mobilized $860 million towards infrastructure project preparation and investments, with a medium-term goal of mobilizing $3 billion from the private sector. To attract global pension funds and sovereign wealth funds and other institutional investors to Africa, Your Excellencies, the African Development Bank has launched the Africa Investment Forum. The Africa Investment Forum, which will kick off next year, will be a totally transactional forum, not a talk shop, to drive significant private sector investments on the continent. We look forward to working with you to make this a huge success for Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, last week's announcement that the bank has again maintained its AAA rating confirms that your bank is solid, trusted, reputable, and dependable. What we need now is more resources through a significant general capital increase for the bank to be able to fast-track Africa. I therefore request for Your Excellency's strong support for a significant general capital increase of the bank. With your strong support for the high fives and a general capital increase for the bank, Africa will see accelerated development within 10 years. We will develop with pride. We will truly liberate Africa with visible impacts on the lives of our people. Then we can shout that victory song yet again. Amandla, and all across Africa, all of our good people will respond in symphony, Ngawetu. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies.
Thank you. That was the President of the African Development Bank. At this point in time, we will have a short cultural intervention to be performed by the Market Theatre Group.
Yeah. let us celebrate our majestic global dream. A million dreams planted 37 years ago for the health and growth of our people. For land, sea, fauna and flora, river and
my beloved friend, we are nothing without dreams. Holding hands, our golden heritage, shared pride, laughter, our mystical melody. So is the story of us and our journey as SADC. The nightmarish delight of a thousand madness of dreams. We are born of stubborn stuff. The skies are smiling. Stars make our night fresher than snow.
Bula, Bula.
Thank you for that performance. At this point, I'll now call upon His Excellency President Dani Fawuri from the Republic of Seychelles to come and deliver his maiden speech.
Your Majesty, King Mswati III, Your Excellency, President Zuma, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Ministers, distinguished delegates and guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of my delegation, I wish to convey to you, the government and people of South Africa, our most sincere appreciation for the warm welcome and generous hospitality offered to us since our arrival. You have made us feel at home. My appreciation is extended to the outgoing chairperson, His Majesty King Mswati III, for his sterling leadership of our organization during the past year. Chair, it is a great honor for me to be here today on this auspicious occasion of the 33rd Ordinary SADC Summit of Heads of State for the first time in my capacity as President of the Republic of Seychelles. As a proud member of our SADC family, we are wholeheartedly committed to the principles and values enshrined in our treaty. And as the new President, I am personally devoted to upholding these ideals throughout my tenure. Since my inauguration in October last year, I have made it my key mandate to create an atmosphere for greater social cohesion, inclusiveness, and national unity through a process of genuine reconciliation. I urge the nation to embrace our political diversity as a strength, not a weakness. Chair, the structure of state is functioning to the satisfaction of all political stakeholders. For the first time in our history, we are living in a state of cohabitation whereby the parliamentary majority does not come from the ruling party. I have taken this opportunity to establish a regular and meaningful dialogue between the executive and the legislature in an effort to rise above partisan politics and work together in the best interest of Seychelles. As President, I chair the Leaders' Forum at the start of each session of Parliament, whereby we have the Vice President, the Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, and the Leader of Government Business in the National Assembly. Through a consultative process with the opposition party, we have amended the Constitution to do away with the provision whereby a president resigns and the vice president continues for the remaining term in office. Major bills that impact on our society and our people now go to a white paper stage for broad consultation before being submitted to Parliament. We have also strengthened the independence of our Public Broadcasting Corporation, paving way to a new era. We have made decisions such as the amendment of the Constitution to limit the term of office of a sitting president to 2 mandates of 5 years, the amendment of the Electoral Commission to increase the number of members, the establishment of the Anti-Corruption Commission and the increase in its number of members, and the submission of the Access to Information Bill, which will guarantee the public with the constitutional right of access to information held by public authorities performing a governmental function. Chair, we speak about the SADC we want. Yes, the SADC we want is one which is at peace with itself. A SADC which has economic opportunities for each and every one, where no citizen is left behind, where the value of freedom is translated in real living standards for all our citizens. Chair, I believe in the need to establish peace in order to progress forward as a nation and as a region. Our fellow brothers and sisters in the Kingdom of Lesotho and the Democratic Republic of Congo are in need of our support to manage the insecurity and instability in the countries, and it is our duty to assist them in any way we can. Through leadership and a collective effort as a region, I believe Lesotho and the DRC can overcome the issues and find peace, stability, and security. Allow me to reiterate my unwavering commitment and support of all SADC programs and protocols. I recognize the great strides and impressive progress we have made as a region in the areas of peace and security, trade, and development. I wish to commend the Secretariat for its critical role in these achievements, and I encourage us to continue on this path towards prosperity. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. That was His Excellency, President of the Republic of Seychelles, Danny Fayure. The next maiden speech will be from the Kingdom of Swaziland, sorry, from the Kingdom of Lesotho. Apologies. To be delivered by the Right Honorable Dr. Thomas Tabane, the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Lesotho.
Your Majesty King Mswati, King of the Kingdom of Swaziland and outgoing Chairperson of the SADC community, Your Excellency Mr. Jacob Zuma, President of the Republic of South Africa and incoming Chairperson of SADC, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Honorable Ministers, Your Excellency Dr. Stegomena Lawrence Tax, the Executive Secretary of the South African Development Community SADC, Your Excellency Dr. Vieira Songwe, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Your Excellency Dr. Akiuni Adesina, President of the African Development Bank, Heads of Diplomatic Mission and Heads of International Organizations, invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I wish to express my appreciation and thanks at the outset to our host, the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Dr. Zuma, government and people of Republic of South Africa, for the warm welcome and hospitality extended to me and my delegation since our arrival in this beautiful and historic city of Pretoria. It is with a deep sense of humility that I acknowledge with gratitude the singular opportunity to address the 37th Ordinary Summit of SADC Heads of State and Government as a newly elected Prime Minister. Indeed, I had the same opportunity to address the 32nd Summit in 2012, and I realized that this noble gesture encourages the deepening of democracy and the rule of law in our region. Your Majesty and Excellencies, on behalf of the coalition government and people of the Kingdom of Lesotho, and on my own behalf, I wish to take this opportunity to convey to you our heartfelt appreciation and gratitude for the consistent efforts that you have made to support democracy in the Kingdom of Lesotho. SADC has steadfastly stood with the people of Lesotho in defense of peace and stability, democracy, and the rule of law. Indeed, a lot of time and resources have been spent by your countries individually and collectively, and through the Secretariat of SADC in this process. Our coalition government therefore intends to implement all SADC decisions on Lesotho's political and security situation. Whilst our government is committed to in the implementation of the SADC decisions without further delay, it is also important to mention that we have declared war against corruption in Lesotho. The eradication of corruption, money laundering, and economic offenses was a priority target for our political campaigns in the recent elections. And the fact that we did win means perhaps the message resonated with our people. Unless this uncalled for moral and economic erosion is vigorously tackled from the outset, the commitments that we made before the electorate will be but useless rhetoric full of empty promises. This situation is non-negotiable. And I think as the Prime Minister of Lesotho, I stand before you to say it is non-negotiable for SADC to tell me to fight corruption in Lesotho. With your support and encouragement 2 months ago, we held general elections that were observed by yourselves and other international observer teams as credible, free, and fair. These elections brought to power Lesotho's third coalition government, which I lead, comprising my party and 3 others. The successful holding of democratic elections and the peaceful transfer of power in Southern Africa is an achievement which testifies that our countries are serious about deepening the roots of democracy and good governance in our region. My coalition government partners and myself have sat down, looked back at what has been the source of political conflict in our country, which has made peace and stability elusive. We came to the conclusion that our political and administrative setup needs to be revamped. It is common knowledge that we have had 3 elections within 5 years, and this can be taken as an indication of deepening of democratic culture. However, the flip side of this is that elections should be periodic, and others were a result of political discord and instability, therefore did not follow the normal flow of periodicity. We are therefore confident that the reforms we are embarking on will bring stability to our political environment with a normal, internationally accepted 5-year cycle between elections. Excellencies, my government is committed to the rule of law, rebuilding and strengthening of pillars of democracy. We have pledged to provide a platform on which all Basotho, without discrimination, will participate. In order to succeed in this journey, the coalition government I lead has committed itself to His Majesty King Letsie III and the people of Lesotho to do the following. 1, to rescue Lesotho from the downward spiral of lawlessness, conflict, political instability, economic stagnation, and degradation of democracy. 2, to work for lasting peace and stability of the nation. 3, to lead the nation on a path of reconciliation and unity. 4, to undertake transparent and inclusive constitutional, political, security, and administrative reforms. 5, to deepen democracy by strengthening democratic institutions, including participation of the citizenry. 6, to introduce the culture of respect for human rights and civil liberties enshrined indeed in our Constitution. 7, to espouse good governance in line with international best practice with emphasis on accountability. And 8, to undertake sustainable transformation of the economy of the country. I think if these things were done and we were to hasten the flow of water from the mountains of Lesotho to the Republic of Botswana, with the consequent revenue that President Khama will be paying to us, our economy is going to rise rapidly. So I appeal to you, President, to sign this deal with us, because we know you're a good payer of debts. Your Majesty, Excellencies, and ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, I must acknowledge support which this organization has consistently and selflessly offered our country. Indeed, this family, SADC, has long advised us through the recommendations of the SADC Observer Mission in Lesotho, SOMILES, to undertake comprehensive reforms. Hence, this coalition government has put reforms as its priority. In this regard, only 10 days ago, the SADC facilitator to Lesotho, the chairperson and deputy chairperson of the Oversight Committee, were in Maseru for consultations with government and stakeholders to chart the way forward to hold an inclusive and transparent multi-stakeholder national dialogue in order to undertake the said reforms. The visit of the SADC facilitator followed the message of our commitment to resuscitate the reform process, which was positively received and addressed through a closed session of the MCO recently held in Dar es Salaam, United Republic of Tanzania, on the 20th and 21st of July 2017. Informed by the decisions of the closed session of the Double Troika, had in its 37th session, it laid milestones for expediting the implementation of SADC decisions by the Lesotho government. I reiterate the commitment of this government to so comply. I repeat, I reiterate the commitment of the government of Lesotho, which I lead, to comply with these requirements of SADC. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we have therefore decided to adopt recommendations and strategies which we believe will strengthen our democracy and ensure lasting peace and stability. We hope and are confident that SADC will continue to work with us on this journey. In conclusion, Your Excellencies, I wish to reiterate my commitment and that of my coalition partners to implement all SADC decisions on Lesotho on political and other issues, including security reforms. And it is my firm conviction that through the envisaged national dialogue and the subsequent comprehensive reforms, we shall have lasting peace, security, and sustainable economic development. SADC must continue to be a vital instrument for articulating and promoting our collective aspirations as a region. I thank you. Peace, reign, and prosperity. That's our motto.
Thank you. That was the maiden speech from the Kingdom of Lesotho, being delivered by the Honorable Prime Minister. Our next item will be the giving of the Media Awards for 2017 for the essay and media competition. At this point, may I invite His Majesty King Mswati III, accompanied by the SADC Executive Secretary, to just come down and deliver the awards to the media winners and essay competition winners. We are going to start with the SADC essay, secondary school essay competition winners. And just to say that the topic for the SADC essay competition was derived from the 36th SADC Summit, and it was harnessing sustainable energy for regional economic development. I'll start with the third winner for the third position. We have Miss Prudence Mavura from the Republic of Zimbabwe. And she gets a certificate and a cash prize of $750 US. In second position, we have Mr. Boemo Tamocho from the Republic of Botswana. He gets a certificate and a cash prize of $1,000 US. The first position goes to Mr. Paul Chiva from the Republic of Malawi, and he receives a certificate and the prize of $1,500. The next is the awards for the 2017 SADC Media Awards, and these are in the 4 categories of radio, photography, print, and television. The Media Awards are presented to journalists in recognition for their excellency in reporting on stories that promote regional integration in SADC. And each category has a cash prize of $2,000 and a certificate. In the radio category, the winner is Mr. Aristides Quito Alfonso George from the Republic of Angola. In the photography category, the winner is Mr. Gaetsitwe Morukagomo from the Republic of Botswana. In the print category, the winner is Mr. Patson Piri from the Republic of Zambia. In the television category, we have 2 winners who submitted their entry jointly, and that's Mr. Msibi Nkosini Samuel and Mr. Dennis Chesane from the Republic of South Africa. We'll allow them to just take a photograph with His Majesty, the Chairperson of SADC, and the Executive Secretary. We'll allow them just a few minutes to be captured. Thank you and congratulations, and may you continue promoting SADC through your writing and through the essays. Thank you very much. Yes. We're now going to have a cultural intervention by Woza Emoshi. Woza Emoshi, are you ready? The intervention will start with a short video clip, and then they'll do their performance, and this all should last us 5 minutes. Emoshi, please just come quickly. Volume, can... Can we please increase the volume, technicians?
My Africans to Africans for the world. SADC.
Meu espaço de amor, universo, a vida, fé, os sonhos, esperança, planeta Terra, planet Earth, planeta Terra, emotion. My Africans to Africans for the world. SADC. Meu espaço de amor, universo, a vida, fé, os sonhos, esperança, planeta Terra, planet Earth, planeta Terra, emotion.
Gentlemen, congratulations. You have done us proud. Tell us more about the story that has led to this victory.
The story was like happening just, you know, behind us next to the SABC when like miners were trapped in the Roodepoort mine. So our colleagues had already started on the story. So they did like the breaking news and so forth. So as current affairs, we thought to do a follow-up on the story. Then we decided to go and do the story on just to look at the plight of illegal miners in South Africa.
Okay. Now, of course, to our viewers at home watching, he is the journalist who covered this story,
yes,
and that is Dennis Tlani, joined by a cameraman who, of course, documented all the activity on the ground, and that is Sam Msibi. And both of you gentlemen did this story for Litlo La Setjhaba, which, of course, is a current affairs program in Lesotho on SABC. Take us through, as a camera person, we tend to sometimes overlook the crucial role that the camera actually brings to stories such as this.
Camera person is a very important work. It's a craft that should be recognized always. I'm happy that we have won at least twice SADC award, and you need to, when you go and cover a story, you need to give all yourself so that you come up with the best out of it. Do the story with passion. Enjoy the shots that you bring up, and then the producer will have easier job to lay out the story.
Yes, certainly. Everything that we do with passion ends up turning into gold, isn't it, gentlemen?
Yes.
Now, take us through how the competition exactly worked. Very short, how many other journalists were you up against?
We are up against journalists from the whole SADC region. It will be in print, in radio, photojournalism and TV category. So ours was for the TV category. We all won the overall prize. Apparently it was a very tough field among our peers on the region, and we thank the SABC especially like for giving us, you know, the go ahead to do stories that are sometimes very difficult but are on the public domain, on people's lips.
Okay, and again, as journalists, we are always reminded that human interest stories are the real stories. In short, we need to go back inside.
Yes, I think so. Issues that are like, you know, there's a common thread among humanity in terms of like stories that we do. We have to like try to find solutions and try to unpack policies that, you know, are being given there by government, how it impacts on our people.
All right, thank you so much. I'm sorry for cutting you short. Unfortunately, we have to go back inside. Two journalists who have made the SABC proud. They have walked away with the awards here at the SADC summit. Let's go back inside.
His Majesty King Mswati III of the Kingdom of Swaziland. The remarks will be followed by the...
Your Excellencies, before I give the keynote, I just received a request from the Prime Minister of Lesotho, who has just requested that there's something very important which he left out when he was still making his remarks. So I'll make this exceptional for the Prime Minister and give him at least some few minutes to run through of what he left out. So you have the floor. You can speak over the Prime Minister where you are, to hear what is it that you left out. Thank you.
Your Majesty and colleagues, I forgot an important part of my speech. The important part of my speech is the fact that on the 27th, on the 27th of August, in Maseru, in our national stadium, I'll be getting married. And when we get married, this man says again, I don't know what he's talking about. When we get married in Lesotho, we kill a few cattle and sheep, and those who like to have a lot of meat And also those who would like to rejoice with us are invited. The occasion will take place in our national stadium, and it will be, but invitations, formal invitations, will be circulated to your different missions before that event takes place. Please come, because I would like to rejoice with all of you. Thank you very much. The identity of the bride is an official secret until you come to the stadium and look. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and congratulations for your new bride, Prime Minister. They always say that there's no man who has been successful without a lady behind. So we appreciate your invitation, and I'm sure all of us will be there to witness this very important day. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's now time for His Majesty to give his keynote address. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President Jacob Zuma, President of the Republic of South Africa, and the incoming Chairperson of SADC, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, the First Ladies, the Chairperson of Council, Mashabane, Honorable Ministers, Your Excellency, the Executive Secretary of SADC, Dr. Lawrence Taxi, Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, President of the African Development Bank, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, captains of private sector, management and staff of the SADC Secretariat, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am humbled and seized with a deep sense of gratitude to stand before you on this auspicious and momentous occasion, the official opening of the 37th Ordinary Summit of SADC Heads of State and Government here in the Republic of South Africa. Allow me from the outset to express my utmost and sincere appreciation to the President, Government, and the people of the Republic of South Africa for the warm welcome and excellent hospitality that has been extended to our delegation since our arrival. The excellent facilities provided to us will no doubt enhance our deliberations to realize the objectives of our summit. As we gathered here, we are saddened by the loss we have suffered of the great sons of this region, including the former President of Botswana, Dr. Ketemere Masiri, who passed away recently. On behalf of the region, we express our deepest condolences to all those who passed away, and to President Khama, the government, and the people of the Republic of Botswana. President Masiri, even in his retirement, continued to be an instrument of peace in this region and indeed the whole of Africa. Your loss is our loss, and may his soul rest in peace. May you all rise to observe a minute of silence. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Your Excellencies, it was indeed a huge task for us over the past 12 months to lead our regional organization. To chair the 15 member states of SADC comes with several responsibilities, which include providing leadership and guidance to facilitate implementation of the SADC agenda and program which have been set out for the region. The chairmanship bestowed upon our kingdom gave us a sense of pride as a nation, and we are grateful for the confidence in us shown by the SADC leaders. The support from all the member states has been very humbling indeed. When assuming the task, we did so with great anxiety, but Mswati resolved to work together to make our term of office a great success. Through the guidance and support of the Secretariat, we're grateful that we have run our race and delivered tangible progress towards realizing the key objectives of SADC. Our organization was established to improve the well-being of our people by providing a conducive environment that is peaceful, poverty-free, economical, vibrant, and full of employment opportunities for an educated and highly skilled people, to mention but a few. While we have achieved certain milestones, there's still a lot more work to be done. During our tenure of office, we are grateful that SADC member states enabled us to vigorously promote industrial development, which is significant for the economic growth of our nation, of our region. For industrialization to flourish, requisite skills among our people are a necessity. It is for this reason that the SADC Summit in the 2017 took a deliberate decision to link the theme of the 36th SADC Summit to human resource and skills development in the region by resolving to establish a SADC University of Transformation. The university has a noble objective to promote specific skills among our population. It will provide the much needed skills development and consequently employment to our people, thereby causing us to harvest the demographic dividend and at the same time reduce poverty. Technical vocational education and training remains critical if we are to produce entrepreneurs, not job seekers. We want our people to enter the corporate world and create employment opportunities. We are pleased that Summit will receive an update on the progress achieved thus far. Your Excellencies, one of the challenges facing our region is the insufficient supply of energy, which is a key catalyst for industrialization. We are pleased that we have been able to host the investment forum, which was held in the Kingdom last month. It played a pivotal role in bringing together the public and private sectors, as well as financial institutions, to put into action the 2016 summit theme, Resource Mobilization for Investment in Sustainable Energy Infrastructure for an Inclusive SADC Industrialization and for the prosperity of the region. The number of energy and water projects which were showcased, the challenges that were identified, and the solutions that were agreed upon demonstrate the potential that the region has. We have no doubt that the incoming chairperson will keep the momentum regarding our resolve to mobilize resources and finance our projects that will create a vibrant economic environment in our community. Our regional integration can only be realized if there is full participation of the private sector in our programs and projects, as it is an engine for economic growth, hence partnering with it with it is essential. The SADC Regional Development Fund is important to our agenda. It is indeed a champion of economic transformation, competitiveness, and regional integration. Industrialization as a vehicle is a very practical manner for the transformation of our economies in terms of employment and wealth creation, value addition, and boosting value-based exports. Sustainable financing of SADC projects and programs remains critical if regional integration is to achieve what is meant to. I am glad to note that strategic and operational plans are readily available at the Secretariat and Member States level, from which we can draw some regional projects. These are the SADC Industrialization Strategy and Roadmap 2015-2063, the Regional Infrastructure Development Master Plan, the Agriculture Investment Plan, and the Strategic Integrative Plan for the organ SIPO. With this at our disposal, we need to expedite our processes to bring into reality what we began regarding the agreed SADC Regional Development Fund. In order for us to attain the objectives of SADC Common Agenda, we have to ensure that through agriculture and food security, there's a strong implementation of a series of short and long-term measures. They are necessary to strengthen sectoral cooperation among member states in accordance with the regional agricultural policy. We are grateful that a lot of work towards this has taken place. Key among this is the development of the Regional Agricultural Fund for financing the implementation of the SADC Agriculture Program. It is imperative that we produce enough food for our people. One of the biggest threats to our food self-sustainability objectives is climate change and natural disasters. Our region has suffered great losses brought about by elements such as the armyworms and drought. However, during my recent visit to the SADC headquarters in Botswana, I was impressed with the technological advancement made by the Secretariat in setting up an early warning unit for the benefit of the region. It is through this facility that is capable of analyzing and disseminating information to member states timelessly that greater losses were averted. We wish to thank the Chairperson of the Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation and his team for their good work in making sure that our region remains peaceful. We also wish to express our appreciation to the Executive Secretary and her team for their hard work, which made it possible for us to register the progress I have outlined. This occasion is special in the sense that as we gathered here today to deliberate on the region's common agenda, we still uphold our long-held tradition of passing on the baton to the next leader, who will chair our esteemed organization over the next 12 months. We are confident that South Africa, under the leadership of President Zuma, will lead our organization to greater heights. We are witness to his astute leadership, which has uplifted the social and economic well-being of the people. We have been impressed by the tremendous development that has taken place in this country. We look forward to the President sharing his leadership experiences that will go a long way in helping countries in the region to attain a developed status. With everyone's support, I have no doubt that the new chair will run with the vision of our founding fathers with even greater vigor. I therefore call upon my fellow heads of state and government to render the same support you gave me and the Kingdom of Eswatini during our tenure of office. We pledge our unfettered and unwavering support to you, President Zuma, and the incoming chair of SADC. I know that you are poised to lead our regional community into our regional song, a rhythm that speaks of equity, inclusive growth, and prosperity for all. As I conclude, may I urge all of us to remain committed to the ideals and principles of the SADC Treaty. May I also take this opportunity to congratulate all those who have been recognized today for their contribution to the SADC agenda in various sectors. Your role is well appreciated, and we urge you to continue to play an active part in creating the SADC we want. It is my singular honor and privilege to declare the 37th Ordinary Summit of SADC Heads of State and Government officially opened and hand over the baton to our incoming chairperson, namely President Zuma. I thank you. May Almighty God bless us all.
Thank you, and congratulations to the new SADC chairperson. And at that note, I'm now inviting His Excellency President Jacob Zuma to come and deliver his remarks as the new SADC chairperson. Your Excellency.
Thank you once again, Director of the program. Your Majesty, King Mswati III, Your Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Honorable Ministers, Executive Secretary of SADC, senior officials, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly honored to welcome you, the leaders of our regional family of nations, to the Republic of South Africa for the 37th Ordinary Summit, a SADC Summit of Heads of State and Government. As is our tradition, we use the summit meeting as our platform to review and deliberate on the year's work program, to take stock of progress, and to identify and discuss remaining challenges facing our region. This year's summit symbolizes an important year for SADC since it marks the Silver Jubilee years. Celebration of the SADC as an organization and as a result represents an important milestone for all of us. We are also delighted to host this summit in this iconic building, which is currently named after Oliver Reginald Tambo, one of the outstanding leaders South Africa ever produced. Our government has declared 2017 the year of O.R. Tambo in celebration of his life. O.R. Tambo was a great proponent of regional unity and prosperity. On the occasion of the 21st anniversary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa in April 1979 in Lusaka, O.R. Tambo had this to say, and I quote, "The struggle for national liberation in Southern Africa and those of countries of independent Africa for economic liberation and development are indeed the same struggle," unquote. In addition, and apart from our geographic bond, our region also has strong historic relations and many shared values and cultures. Many of our countries also formed part of the frontline states, which played a key role in our liberation struggle from colonialism to democracy and majority rule. Today, I'm happy to say that our region shares many achievements, including the strengthening of good governance, consolidation of our democratic institutions, and the holding of regular elections. We congratulate the people of Lesotho for the peaceful election, and we are wishing the people of Angola well on the elections scheduled for the 23rd August 2017. We are meeting under an environment that is stable as prosperity and development are inextricably linked to political and security stability. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the International Monetary Fund, in its regional economic outlook for sub-Saharan Africa, has forecasted a modest rebound in aggregate growth of 2.6% in 2017. The economies of the countries in the region continue to be under severe economic difficulty owing to the 2008 global financial crisis and the accompanied decline in global demand for commodities. The rising public debt as a percentage of GDP, driven mainly by the budget deficit, puts a further constraint in access to the much needed capital to fund regional projects, in particular the much needed infrastructure, as the debt service cost burden increases. Global uncertainty persists, with the indication that countries in the world economy are inward-looking, with evidence of some taking a policy stance which could be characterized as pushbacks on globalization. It is therefore imperative that the region focuses inward. African economies are small by global standards. Therefore, a collective response through regional integration is essential for structural transformation of our economies. The region cannot continue to be suppliers of primary products in global value chains and low levels of domestic production, with economies that are very vulnerable to global shocks. In line with the Global Development Agenda on Sustainable Development, the SADC has, under the chairship of Zimbabwe, developed the Regional Industrialization Strategy and Roadmap of 2015 to 2063 as an inclusive long-term modernization and transformation mechanism. The industrial strategy and the roadmap sets out 3 potential growth paths, which are agro-processing, mineral beneficiation, and manufacturing, downstream processing, and industry and service sector value chains. The SADC's goal is to improve and establish manufacturing capacity, productivity, and comprehensiveness in these sectors. The implementation of these will ensure successful transformation of regional economies from the commodity-dependent growth or growth path to a production-induced growth. This will not only raise the living standards of our people, but also facilitate the rapid catch-up of the SADC countries with industrialized and developed economies. South Africa, therefore, intends to advance progress made by the previous SADC chairpersons. It is of central importance to SADC to add value to our resources and to grow our intra-regional trade and our regional brand. The key activities during our chairship will be the development of a high-impact annual operation plan with targeted interventions and public policy tools to foster the development of regional value chains in agro-processing, pharmaceuticals, and mineral beneficiation. Secondly, we'll promote a member state-driven process through the Industrial Development Forum to facilitate the identification of cross-border projects that will strengthen regional value chains and contribute to the development of the region. The achievement of this requires a functional regional market, which is key to facilitate investment. We will need to ensure that we find an effective way of promoting a rules-based trade environment that promotes certainty and stability. The implementation of commitments under the trade protocol have to be an integral part of this agenda so as to create an integrated market that is conducive to the development of regional value chain. As a contribution towards capacity building, South Africa will, in addition to the initiative started by Swaziland on the establishment of the University of Transformation, introduce a new program to develop capacity in industrial policy making and implementation for senior officials in the SADC region. As you would know, infrastructure is the key driver of industrialization. An important gap identified by both the public and private sectors is the lack of funding to develop bankable projects. In addition, industrial investment is a catalyst to economic transformation and industrial development. let me just underline this point of bankable projects. As you know, we have the BRICS Bank and its regional center has been established. And this is meant in the main for us to be able to have projects that can be presented to the bank, bankable, so that we are in a position once again to take advantage of this international bank that is in our continent. There is enthusiasm with BRICS members to have this relationship deepened between itself and the African countries. So let us take advantage of this, and I'm happy that our two representatives here, one representing the United Nations, have indeed indicated their enthusiasm and passion of walking with us in this path. I think the president of the African Bank went further to identify very concrete things that the bank is doing. Let us once again take this advantage as a region, and therefore our economies must work hard to ensure that we are not found wanting when we need to present our projects. Let us work hard. I think for the first time in the history of this continent, we have a possibility of a window that is opening for us. Let us use it. And during this tenure, we are going to try our best to push this as hard as we can. We therefore need to leverage infrastructure spend to fast-track the process of structural transformation in our economy. Currently, the nature of funding or loans from the international cooperative partners is such that the conditions imposed ensure that benefits yield to the lender countries. This must change. You go to lend because you want to be assisted to come out of difficulties. We should not continue to accept a situation where if you lend, you are actually digging deeper the hole of difficulties. The loans come with conditions that dictate which companies to use in project implementation, and sometimes even dictating the sources of raw materials. This must change. There is a need to mobilize regional resources to fund regional projects. I think I heard this very clearly from the president of the African Development Bank, and therefore our thoughts of thinking are converging. This is a key element towards the region's ambitions of having its own regional development fund. Furthermore, esteemed excellencies, food security remains a critical component of our developmental path. Over the past few years, we have experienced natural disasters and felt the impact of transboundary pests such as the fall armyworm and tuta absoluta. These have had an impact on food security. South Africa will be working closely with the SADC community in developing and rolling out a model in terms of prevention, surveillance, and in dealing with destructive, invasive species that challenge us and our development. The Food and Agricultural Organization and other related organizations in SADC will constitute a process to roll out the model throughout the region. Your Excellencies, taking the lead from our various chair, the Kingdom of Swaziland, I would like to emphasize the need to promote region-wide integrated energy planning and cooperation in the development of priority energy infrastructure and maintenance projects with the view to attract private sector investment. The President, once again, of the African Development Bank made a very important point that Africa cannot develop in the dark. The projects that we've been talking about that will solve our problems should be prioritized deliberately and purposefully. One of the potential game changers for the region is the discovery of globally significant natural gas resources, both onshore and offshore, in a number of our member states. I would imagine that particularly the President of the African Bank, working together with our finance ministers and officials, should work out a regime that begins to favor us. I don't think we should continue having our shores either offshore or onshore, where we now discover, if we are discovering, such quantities of gas and other important minerals that we still have no say in how they're utilized, particularly with regard to us, where they are found. We still play not even a shadow of role. That time must change, and I think we need to work hard. These are ours. Africans must benefit from the Africans' resources. And I don't think if we do so, we will be becoming difficult. We will be just being normal on a normal situation. It's absolutely important. It can happen. Our sister country, Botswana, processes diamond now in Botswana. Nobody died before it happened. It is happening. It is normal. We need to think and think hard and bring facts and change the manner in which who benefits and how, rather than people who might have technology to find these, and therefore make that a determining point that they are in charge, they own it, it belongs to them. It can't be right. As a new initiative, we are proposing the establishment of an interstate natural gas committee to share learning for regional gas development and to prepare for the development of the wider gas economy. This is what we need to do. And I'm hoping that we will not say we need a lot of processes to establish this committee. It's a decision we can take whilst we are meeting here, and then look at the modalities later. But to establish it, in other words, to make a very clear statement that as a region, we are serious about our economies. That committee will be given very user-friendly tasks to address this matter. As such, the inclusion and promotion of gas into the regional energy mix will facilitate an increase in universal access to energy as well as industrial development in SADC. Ladies and gentlemen, the South African theme for its chairship year is, as we have heard, partnering with the private sector in developing industry and regional value chains. We would put meaning to this if we take just few innovative decisions for our participation in the real sense. We are in a better position that we should utilize to our benefit. If I use the peasant thinking, you must not sell a cow which is female, looking at it standing here and sell it, when you know in few years' time it's going to produce milk, and you then go and buy milk continuously from the one who bought it from you. Let us do it the other way around. Don't sell the female cow. Keep it. You can sell the other cow for other reasons. This theme seeks to promote momentum and continuity in our collective aspiration towards regional sustainable economic development and industrialization. We further believe that joint focus on these deliverables, which are mechanisms through which our region's trade potential can be harnessed to the benefit of our people, will ensure successful implementation. Our cooperation as a region will allow our economies to overcome the challenges of small, fragmented economies and create a larger market that improves the region's prospects to attract investment. We will also need to work together towards the objective of broadening integration through the establishment of the tripartite free trade area and the continental FTA. I'm pleased to inform this august gathering that South Africa has recently appended its signature to the agreement establishing the TFTA, thereby becoming the 9th member state out of the 26 nations to do so. This august gathering, or this augurs well for our long-standing decision to support regional economic integration. South Africa will also, during its chairship, prioritize the inclusion of the trade in services negotiations in SADC. The prioritized sectors include construction, communication, transport, finance, energy, and tourism. This will put the SADC region in a firm position to engage in the continental FTA negotiations. In conclusion, I am thrilled to announce and unveil the new project that is a culmination of a number of years of collaboration across a number of SADC member states. This project impacts on a range of value chains in the agricultural and manufacturing sectors and has an impact on food security, health, and education. This project, esteemed delegates, is known as the SADC Nutri-Drink. It is a highly nutritious and scientifically formulated drink aimed at providing a low-cost, balanced drink that will be made available to school children, old age, and vulnerable communities. It consists of ingredients that are grown across the region and will entail the development of regional value chains in the agricultural sector to provide the necessary inputs. It will then require an investment by private sector players in each of the member states within the food processing sector to manufacture and distribute the drink. It will also require collaboration between the private sector and the departments of education, social development, and health to ensure access to the Nutri-Drink. This project will be available to each member state to implement. I'm very pleased to be able to not just unveil this project, but to indicate to our esteemed guests that samples are available to ensure that you are kept alert and healthy for the duration of this summit. Prime Minister of Lesotho, you said your mountains produce water, and this water will flow to Botswana. Your Excellency, President of Botswana, you were told you are a good pair by the Prime Minister. Now, this is a beauty of our geography. These neighbors who are talking, they can't do anything excluding South Africa. There is no water that can jump high. It has to go through South Africa. Now, if the Prime Minister of Lesotho wants to say to Botswana, pay, South Africa is going to say, you both pay. Huh? But because we are good neighbors, we know how to handle these things without any difficulty to anyone. I'm just happy that that project is indeed being indicated by the Prime Minister of Lesotho, because Botswana, among other things, Botswana is blessed with many things, but one of the problems is water. And it's not just the Botswana water only. South Africa itself is a water-scarce country, so we know this challenge. And therefore, we'll talk with the Prime Minister, who doesn't have many things, but water does, in Lesotho, to say, taking the importance of water, the price must not go up, must go down, particularly if we have good paying neighbors. Absolutely, but thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, may I once again welcome you all to the Republic of South Africa, and trust that you will have a very fruitful visit. You always discover something in South Africa each time you come here. I met a person who had been coming to South Africa so many times, who used to come to Joburg and fly to Cape Town and back and go. The day this person flew to Durban, was shocked that in South Africa there's such a big city with such good conditions, with such big kind of things that you can see. And I said, we have not seen South Africa if we have not traveled throughout South Africa. So it's important that once we are here, just take a day or so to see more of South Africa during a short visit. It is my hope that this summit and our celebration of 25 years of 25 years as SADC will be a time for reflection and renewed cooperation towards our shared common future of a prosperous and peaceful SADC region. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attention.
Thank you very much. We've now come to the end of the official opening ceremony of the 37th SADC Summit of Heads of State and Government. There's a slight change in our program. According to the program, there was supposed to be a family photo by the Heads of State and Government, but that will happen later, as the Head of State would like to proceed straight into the closed session of summit. This means that we will have the first ladies, the first spouses, to leave, and they'll be escorted to the holding room, and colleagues from the media will have to leave, and all the guests who are not part of the closed session may have to leave now so that the closed session of summit continues. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful day. And for the media, the documents, the press releases will be available in the media center. Thank you very much.
Yeah? Well, thank you so much. We are back here at the SADC Summit. You just a while ago, a couple of minutes ago, perhaps 2 minutes ago, saw President Jacob Zuma stepping down from the podium as he, of course, was addressing the delegation here as the incoming chair of the SADC region, but not only as South African president. Of course, giving us a very interesting speech, pinning down some of his hopes and appreciations for what has so far been achieved in the region, closing that speech of his saying that he thinks it's time for reflection and renewed vision for a prosperous SADC region. And he went into the economy in terms of what they hope they can achieve in the economy, and he highlighted saying that Africa cannot develop in the dark. It is time that the SADC region looks inwards and find ways to actually develop its raw material in of course, benefit for the millions of people in the region, and saying that unity at this time is very much important among the leaders in the region. It's time that they communicate with a united voice and a united vision to better the lives of many and, of course, achieve their reforms and objectives in the region. But while he was, of course, delivering that speech here, touching on the important issues as the incoming chair, outside something else was happening, a protest that of course grabbed the attention of the media, and we have that protest that is still continuing outside. My colleague Mweli Masilela was outside to get his eye on what's happening out there. Mweli, just quickly bring us into the picture. What is the protest about? We know that of course it is the SADC Democracy Forum that comprises of various countries, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Swaziland, and of course members from the DRC that have been outside to express their unhappiness with particular issues. They have been accusing some of the leaders here of dictatorship and failing to, of course, address their burning needs as citizens in the SADC region. But bring us into the picture. What happened outside?
Good afternoon, Patricia and the viewers. Yes, I was outside. What we've seen from outside is that there was this protest. As you have said, it's different political parties, civic organizations, and other concerned groups from the different countries that are represented here in the SADC. Mainly what they are saying is that they feel like they are being misrepresented in some of the issues, mainly in terms of some leaders that are not running their respective countries properly. So as you can see that those visuals that are currently underway, there was kind of some clashes after some supporters of Zambian President Edgar Lungu came there, and you remember it was only a march organized by the SADC Democracy Forum, but they did pitch there, and then there was that kind of standoff between the supporters of Edgar Lungu and the members of the SADC Democracy Forum. So the police had to intervene by sort of pushing away those who were protesting, and as far as I know, the petition was finally handed over to some of the representatives of different countries here. As I've got the petition here, specifically zooming into the DRC, we spoke to some of the members of the Democracy Forum from the DRC. What they are saying is that they are not happy about the fact that Joseph Kabila has been president for like 16 years, which is against the constitution, because according to the constitution, he should have only had 2 terms. But then there was an agreement that he will sort of call a date for elections, which is something that is still something that hasn't happened as yet. So they're saying they're calling for the SADC leaders who are here to toe the line and work as per the mandate of SADC, which is to ensure that the rights of people are not violated. But from their side, they're seeing that what is happening currently in the DRC, it's violation of human rights. And also the people from Swaziland, there were different political parties from Swaziland. I can name the Communist Party of Swaziland. There's also Pudemo, and many others. What they are saying is that what hurt them the most, it's not only that Swaziland is a member state of SADC, whilst it's ruled by a monarch, but what hurt them the most is the fact that the King of Swaziland, which is King Mswati III, was allowed to chair the SADC. From their view, they were against that, citing some reasons, for example, saying that there are still political prisoners which are not freed. They are citing that freedom of expression is not allowed. Political parties are still banned. They want the 1973 decree to be removed so that political parties also participate. Also, there were representatives from Zambia representing political groupings and civic organizations from there. They're saying that the rule by Edgar Lungu is kind of autocratic. So those are some of the issues that they raised outside there as the protest continued.
All right, thank you so much, Mweli, for bringing us into the picture in terms of what is happening outside the SADC summit here in Pretoria. So it seems like a lot of activity are taking place here as the leaders gather to find solutions to the problems of the region. The citizens of the region are crying foul outside, demonstrating, of course, expressing their unhappiness with some of the issues that they do have. They have accused some of the leaders of dictatorship and misrepresenting the people of the region and failing to implement some of the objectives that have been tabled, of course, to better the lives of the many people in the region. Now, of course, we have repeatedly heard some of the leaders who have delivered today, putting focus on the importance of creating stability in the SADC region, and that way they can, in a much easier way, achieve their objectives. And I am now joined by one of the leaders who are part, of course, who's part of the summit here, and that is the Minister of Trade and Industry from Mozambique, and that is Max Tunela. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. It's a hectic summit, drama outside, but of course also a lot of work for the leaders that are gathering inside. The incoming chair, President Jacob Zuma, who now will take on the baton to lead the region, made some very interesting points on the economy, stability in the region, but I think the focus fell on the need and importance for SADC leaders to take the first step in terms of growing the economy with its own products. Raw material need to be developed right here on the African continent instead of exporting it and re-importing it at triple the price, isn't it? Isn't that the focus right now?
Yes. As you know, one of the priority of SADC is industrialization. We have a route for the industrialization of the region. And the Mozambique government is also aligned with this strategy. In 2016, we have approved a new revised domestic strategy, which is focused on transform primary goods that Mozambique on those days we produce and export with very low level of transformation. We talk about mineral goods as well as agricultural goods. Most of the Mozambique economy is based on agriculture, and through the development of infrastructure that facilitate industrialization, as well as policies that motivate private sector to invest on manufacturing. Those are the actions that the government is taking in order to, in medium term, to have to promote structural transformation of our economy.
Now, one of the points that President Jacob Zuma also made was the importance for good infrastructure development to realize your vision of industrialization in the region. How far are we with that? Do we have the right infrastructure in the SADC region to make sure that we can actually develop our own raw material?
We still have challenges in terms of infrastructure. We talk about ports, airports, roads, railways, energy, as the president of African Bank referred. Most of the projects that governments in the region are focused in. In terms of Mozambique, we know that we have a huge potential to develop energy, hydro energy, and in the last 2 years, we have seen new projects coming in based on natural gas, and more than 50 megawatts of new capacity have been installed in the last 2 years, and we still have in pipeline projects in infrastructure, includes roads and transmission lines, which also are focused not only for Mozambique, but also to supply to the region in order to ensure that we have resources to develop our economies.
Now, SADC is celebrating 25 years at this summit. It's not just the 37th summit, but you're also celebrating 25 years that this body is sitting. And for the past 25 years, people would say that you have been coming here preaching the same message, but 25 years later, there's not much change. It's almost like we're dwelling in the same circle, but getting nowhere. And hence we're seeing the protest that's outside. So how can people from this summit believe that the leaders can actually deliver as they are promising?
Yes, I think there have been projects that have been implemented through the existence of the organization. We still have lack of communication to have our people in each of our accounts be well informed about what they gain, what is the benefit that we have from be member of the subject. But as Mozambique, we have been part of the commercial free zone of the region. We don't have barriers to import or export from most of the countries that are part of the free zone. Instead, with South Africa since 2010, there's no tariff barriers. That's allowed people, businessmen, to import and export without restriction, which help to develop the economy, but with a social impact on the well-being of the people.
But political instability in the region continues to threaten those efforts.
Yes.
Your country, for instance, was in civil war for years.
Yeah.
And as Mozambique, you have worked tirelessly so to rebuild the country. But we continue to read about the tensions that simmer. We've had leaders throughout this week once again emphasizing on the importance of stability, because once there is stability, then you can reach your objectives. So what now? How do we move forward? I mean, we already have two countries that are making headlines every day, Lesotho and DRC, which is top of the agenda here at this summit. So what can be done to ensure long-lasting stability on the SADC region so that you can achieve your goals for the betterment of our people?
Yes, stability, peace are the pre-assumptions that we have based for the economic and the social development of the region. All the leaders are doing is work with each of the countries in order to focus on inclusion, in order to, and also negotiation between whatever difference might happen between different parties, that to avoid that we still have situation that we are living today with Lesotho and DRC. And on the Troika yesterday, we have been informed about the progress that we are having. And we believe that with efforts from the people from those two countries, as well with support of the leaders of the region, we'll be able in short term to live in a region without war, without instability. Because without that, nobody will be having the benefit of the development that the region can provide to all these people.
Now, the double Troika meeting, as you said, you were informed about some of the progress made with regards to those two countries. Bring us into the picture. What type of progress are we talking about? We heard Lesotho Prime Minister who briefed us earlier, and not briefed the media but briefed the gathering here earlier. He expressed his commitment to make sure that he sees through the conclusions made by SADC here and so forth. He also thanked the SADC leaders for not giving up on Lesotho. But tell us what was discussed, what was concluded during the Troika meeting for those two countries.
The SADC have decided before the election that have been held in June that we have to focus on reforms in Lesotho in order to avoid the focus of instability. And what the Troika had yesterday was a brief from the new government, the new Prime Minister, about what they intend to do in order to fulfill what they agree. Because even before the election, the SADC leaders instruct the facilitator to work with the government with all the interested part, all the opposition part, in order to have a national common agenda. So the government of Lesotho, what they informed us yesterday, is that they are all committed with the agenda of the reform. Also on the army, as well as in the legislation, in order to avoid the focus of the instability that we have been registered in the last few years.
Yeah. Let's talk about drought in the SADC region. South Africa, for instance, has a problem with water shortages, but it's not just us, it's across the region. Is there a strategy to deal with the issue of drought in the SADC region?
Yes, there are. Development of infrastructure in order to retain the water that we have is one of the focus. Specifically for South Africa and Botswana, one of the sources can be water available in Lesotho, but the development of the infrastructure in order to have those water supply to the areas in South Africa and Botswana is the solution. In Mozambique, we still have the same problem. We have many rivers, but we also facing extremes events like droughts and floods. So, and the strategy is to develop dams in order to keep water when we require, but as well as manage to avoid floods and minimize the effects of extreme events like floods and droughts. Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Max Tonela. Yeah. He is the Minister of Trade and Industry from Mozambique. From us here, SABC team, we continue to bring you live coverage of the 37th SADC Summit. We'll also continue to monitor the protests outside. For now, we're taking a break. We're linking to that ad break that is scheduled. We'll be back at 3 o'clock.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Can I have the mic? We are standing by. What's next?
What happens next? What happens next?